All right. Well, hi. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back to this channel. Right. So you saw by the title that I have called this particular live um, about learning how to quit, or how what I've learned as I've been trying to quit. Okay, coffee. And I have had 3 days where I have not had any coffee. And for somebody who would typically have anywhere from 4 to 5 a day, every day, uh, for me, that was a big deal. Oh, hey there, Christine. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming and joining online. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so what have I learned? Well, for one thing, trying to quit anything cold turkey sucks and is hard to do. Okay. Now, in my mind, in my memory, I absolutely was able to. I was able to quit. I remember it this way. I was when I first started going keto. In my, I had remembered. I had remembered cutting out carbs and sugar as something I just did instantly. But the reality is that isn't how it happened. I had been paleo first at the end of May. So basically, I was at 200 pounds by the end of May of 2020, between having an underactive thyroid and back injury, chronic pain, and fibromyalgia, which did not allow me to do any sort of real physical exercise. And then, of course, the lockdowns from COVID and eating lots of fast food and takeaway, not understanding that these things were contributing to my weight and bloating and inflammation. And then, of course, coffee on top of that. So my hunger signals were totally jacked and everything was messed up. Um, Yay. And there are so many of us out there like that. And going from at that point, 35 years of being a bulimic, dealing with binging and purging, as well as periods of like severe restricting, diet pills, diet shakes, all of it. I did it all. I tried it all. Um, and of course, none of it worked, but I didn't know that. And for me, I thought 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day was pretty good because my comparison, by the way, Christine, my comparison at the time was to what I used to drink in university. And when I was in university, I was drinking almost 22 cups of coffee a day, like almost 2 full pots of filter coffee a day, because caffeine is an appetite suppressant, for those who don't know. And yeah, it worked wonders, except for the fact that when it didn't, or when I did let myself eat, when I was actually eating again, I didn't know this, but all the low fat, high carb stuff that I was eating was contributing to the problem. So that was, sorry, a long way around to my answer. So the first thing I had to do, was, of course, cut back on and cut out a whole bunch of stuff. So basically, my weight kept creeping up, and I was 200 pounds by the end of May of 2020. Now, my husband had put on some weight. Most of us did, at that point, not being able to go to the gym and stuff like that because of COVID, obviously. And he had been talking with his sister, who I don't even know how the conversation came up, but she had mentioned that she had lost quite a bit of weight. She had reversed her Hashimoto's diagnosis, and she did that by going paleo. And she had a book that she had read, and she recommended that we might try, might help us. So I bought the Kindle version, And the deal was I would read it and then my husband was just like, just tell me what I need to eat or not eat, and I'll do it and do exactly what I'm told. So that's what we did. And I read the book and it said, you got to give up, um, you got to give up gluten, soy, sugar, and dairy. Those are the first four things that you're told to give up when you do the induction part of paleo. All right. So nothing else was addressed initially. Well, other things were not addressed, but sugar in the sense of refined sugars, right? That whole fruits was still okay. So, anyways, we followed that for the first 2 weeks. I took dairy out. Now I didn't know any better. I replaced it with nut milks or nut waters, nut whatever, you know. Um, so that's fine. I mean, it wasn't fine, but that's what we did. I never drank soy anyways. I didn't eat any soy because it I don't do well with it. I mean, nobody really does, truthfully. So there was no soy, there was no dairy. Um, I avoided gluten because I have a gluten sensitivity. And the last thing, which was the hardest thing, was to cut out processed sugar for 2 weeks. So fine. But we did it and we were both exhausted and we had major withdrawal. And yet we got through it. Okay. But then what I was finding was the paleo approach that was supposed to heal my leaky gut, it was supposed to cure my IBS, this whole let's fix the gut first. That was the approach of this particular doctor. And it worked for my sister-in-law. And it actually worked pretty well for my husband because he doesn't have really any sort of, well, no sensitivities or allergies per se. So, fine. But it didn't work for me. Because what I didn't quite get was the fact that when you're on paleo, you still include nuts, you still include some grains and some cereals for those who tolerate it. Very little, but some. And so those things are bad enough for me, for my IBS, and for anybody else who suffers, don't eat any nuts of any kind. Horrible, 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 horrible things to eat if you have IBS, and even if you don't, they're still horrible for you. High, high, high in oxalates and toxins and everything else. But anyways, so that was fine. But it said to include lots of non-starchy veg, which would include things like broccoli and cauliflower, which those of us who suffer all know that those are the worst things to eat for us, some of the worst things to eat for IBS. So all the things that were okay on a paleo diet were things that I couldn't eat anyways because of the IBS. So it was easy for me to cut them out because I didn't eat them anyhow. But then it was a female doctor, she talked about the importance of eating dark leafy greens, and there were recipes for juicing and for making up different smoothies and juices with dark leafy greens, and including things like apples and carrots and beetroot, which are all horrible things. Well, I mean, most plants are, but horrible things for me because I simply cannot handle them like at all. Okay. Basically, any plant that is out there that is deemed edible, I cannot eat because I will not be able to tolerate, some worse than others. All right. So that being said, what she recommended along with some other steps in her book were things like you may have to eliminate nuts, you might have to eliminate seeds, you need to maybe incorporate avocado, which I did try, which I don't tolerate. And it wasn't until about the final chapter of her book where finally she talks about, how to incorporate eggs into your diet. Maybe incorporate a little bit of meat and maybe things like bacon. Well, I was okay with bacon. I was okay with the idea of bacon. But everything else was causing me problems. And I thought, that's it. Here I was thinking it worked for my sister-in-law, and she, lost like 35 pounds, And now she can handle some wine once in a while, and she can sort of eat what she enjoys, and it was all great. And it didn't work for me. In that first 4 week period, I think I might have lost 1 or 2 pounds in water weight. And then I was so constipated, I had no bowel movements for almost 2 weeks. Like I was this close to waiting on hold in order to get through to my GP surgery and see a doctor, because this was not normal. Even at the worst of my IBS, had not gone that long in between waiting for a bowel movement. I knew it was bad, and I was still taking Senna pills regularly, and green tea, and drinking lots of water, the things that were supposed to help. And because I also found out that my triglycerides were too high because I was eating so much fruit. I'd already cut back on my fruit consumption, so I couldn't even eat that. The whole fiber will help you. No, that's rubbish. Fiber never did anything good for me, ever. So I don't need it. But what I also came to discover was that there had to be something far, far better than paleo, because I had lost no noticeable weight. I was, my IBS, I was backed up like nobody's business. And, before you ask, no, it was not because I was still drinking coffee. I had been drinking coffee throughout this time. Now, not 20 to 24 cups a day, not at all. Had I been using coffee often as a tool to suppress my appetite? Yes. But I had done it enough when I was at university. I had messed up my metabolism and screwed it up so badly that by this point, it wasn't even really doing that for me. So I wasn't drinking. I was maybe having 3 cups of coffee in a day, maybe 3, sometimes somewhere between 2 and 4, usually 3. But I knew that the food had to change first, and I didn't know what else to do. And I remembered, now I know that this was God kind of reminding me, sort of the Holy Spirit kind of reminding me to go, oh, wait a sec, wait a minute, keto. As I've shared in other videos and lives, my sister-in-law, a different sister-in-law. So this was my husband's sister. My brother's wife suffers with psoriasis. I don't know if that's causing the arthritis or a result of, but she suffered with that really, really badly. And so for her, she also went through an elimination process. And she and my brother at one point had been very much very strict ketogenic, leading towards, even I would say at one point 100% carnivore. And she cut out coffee. I don't know how she managed to do that. Good for her. I don't think she was ever a big coffee drinker in the first place, but she cut out coffee. They only ate meat, maybe eggs, keto really, because they would cook some like sweet potatoes occasionally, and they would make those sorts of things for their daughter. But basically, she was eating essentially meat and a little bit of veg, just a little bit of veg, right? And it seemed to be helping. And I remember thinking at the time, like back in 2015, I'm like, what is this craziness? Like, oh my gosh, wow. What is she doing? Like, it's just nuts, weirdos. And of course, as I can now laugh back at myself, now I'm a bit of a weirdo because I started doing keto and it worked. It started to work. And I remember one of the people I found on YouTube, Keto Christina, I believe was her name. And she talked about how ideally you want to ultimately cut out all starchy vegetables and make things as low carb as possible and definitely cut out fruit. And it took me a little while to work up to that. As I started to eat more protein and more fat, animal fat, I had less and less hunger for the carbs. And eventually I just cut them out completely. Right. And of course, throughout this whole thing, I was still enjoying coffee. And was it ideal for my IBS? No. And when I had too much of it, I felt it. So I was down to 2, maybe 3 cups a day. And at one point, I was down to 1 or 2. And there was that part of me that just would think, well, I want to have a third. I'll be fine. And so for me, I saw as I worked my way gradually into keto and eventually to carnivore, I was just today reminded that, you know what? I didn't quit either. I didn't do either of those things immediately, like instantly, right? And I did find some healing, quite a bit of healing with my IBS. By the way, if you're wondering what the deal is with these are compression gloves, and actually they do help a lot with I also have Raynaud's syndrome. It's secondary, which means it's triggered by other things. And the doctors don't know what specifically has triggered it, other than I have fibromyalgia, I have an underactive thyroid, you know, already right there, 2 strikes. And I also deal with anxiety, which is a trigger, and depression. Now, I say I deal with, meaning it does not overwhelm me anymore. I am not incapacitated by it. Luckily, I take some really great medication. But beyond that, so medication sort of helped for the last few years, but the big game changer was 2 things, and that was eating a carnivorous diet, cutting all the vegetables, all the starches, all the carbs, everything out, because I simply don't process them at all. There are people who handle them, and they handle them beautifully. And in many ways, I'm kind of jealous because I love vegetables. I love vegetables. I've never met a carrot I haven't liked. Nor have I ever met a pea that I haven't liked, or, um, nor have I met sweet potato fries that I haven't liked. I like vegetables. It's just they don't like me back. So hence why I have to avoid them, but not for any other reason than that. And so the fact that I deal with severe anxiety, which I was diagnosed with back in 2012, but I have had in my life since I was a child, and not because of any specific trauma. I grew up with 2 great parents who were very loving and always very supportive. And, although my dad has passed, my mom is, she's 75 years young and she is still very supportive. So it wasn't because of that. Uh, However, for whatever reason, in my mind, ever since I was I started puberty when I was 11, but ever since I was about 12 or 13, I have been actively in the midst of an eating disorder or disordered eating throughout my life. The only 2 times that it wasn't as loud of a shrill in my head was during my 2 pregnancies. My older son is now 22, my younger son is 19. And when I was pregnant, I ate with abandon. But often, right towards the end of each pregnancy, is when these panic moments and thoughts went into my head of, what if I can't lose this weight? I mean, I'm thankful for the baby and I'm grateful, and they are blessings from God, but what if I can't give up the weight? And then, you become a new mom and you're up middle of the night for feedings, whether you're nursing or you've got the bottle out or you have a sick child. And our older son was very sick as a baby. Several trips to A&E with respiratory infections. We would joke when they were younger that we earned frequent flyer miles for the nearby, wherever we were living, for that nearby A&E department, because the kid, our older son in particular, was constantly sick. I mean, the kid had 14 ear infections in a row in 11 months before they decided, oh, maybe we should put tubes in. Maybe we should take out his adenoids and his tonsils, see if that helps him at all. So, yeah. So a lot of hospital stays and worry, and the fact that I deal with major anxiety to begin with, and then that's on top of things, did not help. Now, what was not helping me, of course, was 5 and 6 cups of coffee at a time, right? And there are people who can drink a lot of coffee and it doesn't seem to affect them, and they're lucky. And for me, I could have gone for a long time enjoying the taste, and even if I didn't like how it tasted after a while, I would still drink it, because it was just, I was drinking it so fast and trying to chug it so fast into my mouth and into my system, that I wasn't even giving myself time to say, oh, I like this, or I don't like how it tastes now. I'm going to stop drinking it for today. And I wasn't paying attention to what it was doing, or, to the signals that my body was trying to send me of, whoa, like, dude, that's enough caffeine. Even if it's decaf, please switch. I was ignoring that. And the thing is, this is the insanity, is you keep doing it over and you expect a different result. Like, wow. And so it did become very addictive for me. And when I was at the different peaks of my bulimia, and certainly during my restrictive phases of my cycles, the caffeine consumption probably tripled. Why? Because caffeine is an appetite suppressant. When I first came into keto, and of course, Keto Christina at the time was talking about how she liked to put a bit of collagen powder in her coffee, and she felt full and she had energy, and then she went about her day. Now, I don't remember if her coffee was decaffeinated or regular, but I thought, oh, well, cool. I don't have to stop. I don't have to give up coffee, because that was the thing for me. There are so many things that I had to give up, even if I was going to give them up anyways, that coffee was the last thing I was going to hang on to. And part of what I came to realize is that the thing that we give up the last is usually the thing that we have the hardest time giving up. So, and that may or may not be true. When I first started going keto, I was grateful. I was like, great, I don't have to eat kale or spinach anymore. Awesome. I don't have to eat these pea protein shakes and these bone broth whatevers. Fantastic. I'm happy. I'm glad. Don't want any of it. I wanted real food. And I think part of the problem I had as well is that I needed to lose the weight, and it was easily becoming something that I was going to use to restrict as much as I could to get the weight off as fast as possible. Even though I know intellectually, hey, look, some of this weight took me years of severely restricting my food intake and yo-yo dieting and binging and purging. It took me decades to get past that point. And, when I was first reading and following, not just Christina, but other people on YouTube about keto, about intermittent fasting, and about, 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day. And yes, you can still enjoy your coffee and all this stuff, which is great if you're somebody who can have a cup in a day and be done with it. Or go a couple of days and be like, yeah, you know what? I can have it or not. I'm good. And that's amazing. And I want to be more like those people. but for a very long time I was not. And I remember a number of different people on YouTube saying, for women especially, if you want to be able to reset your hunger cues and your hunger signals, you either have to fast or you have to make yourself eat like 2 or 3 thousand calories worth of fatty meat. You have to up your intake in order to reset your body, and that is obviously that is quite true. But for me, I was nowhere near true recovery from bulimia. And I just I went into a complete and total panic. I was like, oh my gosh, no, 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 no. There's no way I'm going to eat that much. Forget it. No, no, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. Not going to happen. No way. I was feeling guilt enough just allowing myself the privilege of having bacon and eggs at breakfast time, or even again at lunch, and not feeling like, oh, that's too many eggs. And what about my cholesterol? And I'm going to get fat and all this kind of thing, this craziness because of years of being indoctrinated. Now I'm 50. I'll be 51 this year. I feel amazing. I don't feel 50. I mean, I don't know what 50 is supposed to feel like, but I feel great. I feel better than I ever have in my entire life. And I'm even talking about my teen years. And I think for me, that's easy because you know what? Guess what? I was either drinking Diet Cola or copious amounts of coffee, even back when I was a teenager, all in a doomed to fail effort to control my appetite. So if I starved myself enough, I could lose weight and be thin. Now, going back, for most of my teen years, I was pretty average. I wasn't grossly overweight. Um, I was maybe 15 pounds above what would have been ideal for me, but I certainly wasn't um, obese in any way. But in my head, I was. And of course, that is the danger of the eating disorder. It doesn't matter what you may actually look like in a mirror. What you think you look like is what you see versus what's actually real. Okay. So, for example, this sweater I'm wearing, okay, comes down just over the hips, right? Nice. It's a small size. It's a size small. So, what? It's like a size 6 in the US and in Canada, size 10 here. Nice and comfortable, but I refused to wear it until today because I was afraid it made me look even bigger than I was. So that's how I know that yes, I am in recovery, but I have moments where those negative dark thoughts creep in. And I made a decision today that I was going to make myself wear the sweater. And even if I have to keep telling myself over and over and over again, I look fine. I don't look fat. I don't look overweight. I look fine. In fact, my husband said he thinks it looks very flattering. So, really, his is the only opinion that matters to me in that respect. And if he thinks I look great, then I need to start trying to remind myself I look great. Right. So, so what happened? Sorry. Where was I? Yes. So I started following keto, and I knew that there was no way I could eat the amount of food that I saw people eating. I just was never hungry enough. And I also realized that having 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day was not helping me figure out what my hunger was. I was afraid. I was terrified to feel hungry because I was terrified that I would start binging again. And I didn't want that because I would lose my control. And so what I had to do was I had to do a couple of things, but I made the decision at that time that I would at least cut back on my coffee. I didn't want to quit because I like the taste. And normally I do. Okay. I enjoy the taste. And when it becomes too much and I start to feel nauseous, then I switch off. But I noticed in the last few weeks that I was drinking more and more and feeling like I needed a cappuccino or a black coffee more and more. And that's when I realized, this has become addictive. And I need to see if I can break that cycle. So I agree with most people out there that having a cup or two of coffee a day is fine. It's everyone's choice, right? And I didn't feel like I could actually keep it to one or two. So I thought, well, I better just do it cold turkey because surely that's going to work, even though I know for me, it would have been too much too soon and not the best thing to do. Well, the weirdest thing happened, and this Sunday just passed. We stopped. We grabbed coffee from Starbucks on our way into London for church service, and I hadn't had any coffee at home yet. you know? So I thought, yeah, 1 cup of coffee, great. I made myself a coffee at home. And when I went to taste it, it tasted absolutely disgusting to me. Horrible. I figured it was just me. Maybe it was the water in the kettle. I don't know. Something was off. And I didn't want any of it. So I thought, okay, fine. We're gonna go to Starbucks on our way to church. So great. I'm sure it must have been the coffee we kept at home. I'll wait, I'll get a Starbucks. I'm sure I'll be fine. We got a Starbucks, each of us, and 2 sips in, and it was absolutely disgusting to me. I had absolutely no desire for coffee whatsoever. Didn't want it. The thought of it made me feel like I was going to be sick. And I remember there was a video I watched with Bart K, or in it, that is, and he was giving up coffee because he's doing this whole lion diet carnivore challenge for 90 days. And he was drinking hot water, which has no taste, but you know, it's something to warm the body. And I thought, well, why don't I try that? And so I did. And for the first day, it was great. I drank loads of hot water, like loads and loads of hot water and cold water. I had a little bit of salt in now and then. And I felt like I could fill up the bathtub with the amount of water I drank. That's how much water I drank. And then all of a sudden, I realized I was feeling awful. I felt sick and achy and gross and disgusting. And I didn't think I could put another mug of hot water down my throat if I wanted to. Not at all. Now, mind you, I was definitely much more. I think really over the past 2 years and a bit, I've become really a lot better at knowing when I'm actually hungry. And if I'm just feeling like peckish, I'm learning to just leave it. And if I'm not ready to get up and cook something in 10 minutes, I'm not hungry. And I just say, I'll be fine. I'll leave it until I am. And which is what I've been doing anyways, but I kept doing. So on Sunday, I was amazed at how much I enjoyed the hot water. That was the first that afternoon. That was the first afternoon without coffee and just hot water, and I felt pretty good. So I figured, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna totally quit. And I had hoped to go at least a week, and not what happened. But let me carry on. Um, so yesterday was like a complete white knuckle day, complete. And I felt nauseous most of the day. I felt like throwing up quite a few times. I had a massive headache. My IBS was probably the worst it's been in a couple of years, actually. And that was without any coffee. Um, and while it did allow for me to feel completely nice and exhausted by 9 o'clock last night, um, I wasn't feeling great. I wasn't feeling as great yesterday as I was Sunday when I first drank some hot water. So this morning, I watched a video that Bart Kay did with Serena Carnivore. Serena Music. I think that's how you say her name is Music or Music. She's under Serena Carnivore. Anyhow, she talks about how she makes bulletproof water. And I don't have a fancy blender, so I put half a tablespoon of butter in a mug, poured boiling hot water over top of it, put in a little bit of salt, and when it melted, I drank it. And it was nice and it was filling, but it wasn't the same. And I don't want to be drinking loads of butter. I have a lactose sensitivity, so I can have small amounts, like say in a cup of coffee if I'm having a cappuccino, and I can have a little bit of butter if I'm cooking it, like frying with it, or cut a small piece off once in a while. But I'm not one of these people that's going to eat a whole stick of butter because I don't do well with that. That makes me really, really sick to my stomach. So drinking the melted butter, because it went to my system so quickly, definitely has some unfavorable consequences. We'll say that. But for the first time in 3 days, I suddenly had a craving for a little bit of coffee, just a bit, not 3 or 4 cups worth. So when my husband said, "Hey, would you mind going out to Starbucks and getting us each a coffee?" I grabbed a cappuccino, got him his latte, and I've been slowly sipping it and enjoying it. So, have I quit coffee? No, but what I've come to see is that I needed to ask myself, why was I so desperate to quit in the first place? And what I came to see was that what I really wanted to be able to do is find a way to enjoy coffee without it being addictive, to enjoy coffee every now and again, to be able to say, "Nah, I'm good, I don't need one," and have water instead, or a cup of decaf tea instead. By the way, for those of you who like tea, you will hate my tea because how I make my tea is I'll put a tea bag in the mug, boil the water, pour the water over the tea bag, squeeze it out, and get rid of it. So it gets just enough tea in the mug to change the color of the water, basically. So anything that's in there is trace amounts. I don't like it strong. I like it extremely weak. I don't put any milk in it, but yeah. So if you like tea and you like regular tea and strong tea, like most of the English seem to over here, you would hate my tea because I that's not how I make it. And even then, I can only have a little at a time. But I found that once I started this coffee, that the low lying headache that was there for the last 3 days is gone. It's gone, and I've got probably half of that left. I might have a few more sips. I don't feel compelled to have to drink the whole thing. So for me, do I feel like I still have an addiction? Maybe, because I still want to have coffee. That's the truth. That's the reality. I still want to be able to include coffee every now and then. And so I did. But I feel like I don't have to have 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 cups of it like I used to. So that's what I've been learning. And I realized I probably spoke too soon when I got so excited on Sunday about how hot water was so great. And it was, I'm not saying it wasn't, it was helpful. And who knows, maybe in a few days, I will, the taste of coffee will disgust me once again, and I will then try to quit again. But for me, I kind of figure I'm going to have to ease myself out of it. Cutting it out cold turkey was too much. And so maybe I need to just take a really slow approach with coffee. Now, I cut out fruits right away, but that's because actually I didn't even do that. So go back into say March of 2020, when I saw the lipid specialist because of my cholesterol and more so my very high triglycerides, what she explained to me was basically I have to not only cut down or cut out processed stuff, but I also had to significantly cut back on fruit, which was a hardship. There are only a few fruits that I could eat safely, well, relatively safely, where my IBS would have a manageable reaction. So I might get a little bit of bloating or a very small amount of, but otherwise I'd be fine. And that would be red gala apples. Um, yeah, basically was just some red gala apples. There was nothing else I could eat that without having major issues. And that was even before knowing about the fructose and the toxins and all this sort of thing. So when she told me that, even then, I didn't all of a sudden say, that's it, no more apples. I had to cut back and ease myself out of that because I knew I couldn't do it cold turkey. Just like I knew when I was starting keto, I had to ease myself out of the carrots and potatoes and other starchy vegetables. Even if they were low carb, it was really challenging. And I knew I could not do it cold turkey, even with God. Okay. Now God was hearing my prayer, I guess, because at that point on the weekend when the taste of coffee just made me want to be sick, it gave me a chance to just stop and kind of reset. So, what I'm going to try to do now instead is at least significantly cut back on my caffeine, maybe one regular cup of coffee a day. And I'm hoping gradually get down to no caffeine, even if that's um, drinking decaf. And I know. What would be the point? Right? And I get that. For me, the point is when my taste buds are not rebelling, I do enjoy the taste of a good cup of coffee. I can have a life outside of coffee or, buying coffee or making coffee, but I do enjoy a nice cup. So, um, do I require it for human health? No. Are there any benefits? Probably not. Is it going to destroy me if I have one cup a day? No. But what I have learned is that I have to make sure that I don't let it become an addiction. Because when that happens, then that's the problem. And it's so funny, I feel like, well, who cares? Like, why even share this? It's not like I'm talking about, you know, quitting cocaine or heroin or meth or anything like that, or even alcohol or sugar and carbs. It's caffeine. But there are effects on the body from it. And if I'm not careful, it is addictive. But I want to be able to enjoy a cup of coffee maybe once a day or once every other day, or if I happen to just want it on a special occasion, I want to be able to enjoy the occasional cup of coffee. And not worry that it's going to set me off on all of a sudden wanting to have 20 cups of coffee in one go. I don't know that it will, but that's where I've been in the past. And I think what's helped me is to go, wait a minute. Other people have quit coffee and that's fantastic for them. That's great. Honestly, it is. It's great. If they've been able to get off of caffeine and having that in their bodies, that is fantastic. And I'm hoping that eventually I'll get to that point myself because, um, for me, I think as long as I keep it very minimal and only on an occasion, then I think it's going to not have too significant of an impact on my IBS. And overall, it can be just an occasional treat and enjoyment. I don't eat desserts. I don't eat anything processed, no sugars of any kinds, and no carbs of any kinds. So that includes all plant material and anything in a package, because if it's in a package, it's not fresh, it's not whole, it's processed garbage most of the time, right? So it's one of those, it's my last little vices. And I think I'm so used to having that as my safety net to make sure that I wasn't going to go out and be able to binge and that I could actually, not feel hungry so I could go longer and I could, intermittent fast, or basically I wasn't fasting, I was severely restricting, not realizing before that in fact it was causing my metabolism to get completely messed up beyond belief. So between an underactive thyroid and 35 years of bulimia and all that goes with it, my metabolism was completely screwed up. And there was a fear that, well, if I completely get rid of coffee, I'm going to have no control. Now, I have prayed and I turn over and put this before God, for anyone else. Maybe you guys have a different higher power. I mean, my higher power, like I'm borrowing this from 12-step programs. My higher power is God, is in the God of Jesus. For you guys, it might be, maybe it's Mother Nature, maybe it's worshiping like the sun or other gods of other religions. I don't know. But if it helps you to say, I can't do this by myself, and realize that we are powerless to change this for ourselves, because let's face it, if we could change these things, if we could eat properly, if we could not, not binge, if we could not be sucked into the cycle of negative thought, poor self-image, low self-esteem, which then feeds anxiety, which for me triggers bulimia and binging, purging, restrictive intake of calories. If that was something I could control all by myself, I never would have found my way to God. And I certainly would never have even bothered with a keto or now carnivore diet. Why? Because I could have just done it all on my own power. And that's not, sorry, I use my hands a lot, but that doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. I would guess if you guys have been hanging out and watching and following any of my videos or my live streams, either live or after the fact, then I'm imagining that you guys probably are the same way. And what I realized is a couple of things. One, what was the biggest reason I thought I had to give up coffee? So for me, hi Aiden, I'm recording, dude. I'm recording. Hey, okay, leave him. Hi, sorry. This is my son, and this is my spaniel. And he's waiting to walk the dog. So if you will pardon me for a second. So Aiden, get his leash. All right, sorry. So you've seen the spaniel, and our greyhound is having a nap right now, but he's about to get taken out for a walk. And if you're really lucky, you'll get to see him in just a minute. But one of the things I came to see, there's a few things I had to learn. And that was, what is my real motivation for quitting coffee completely? And does it make sense? And is it sustainable? And I've come to see that no. I did it for 2.5 days, almost 3. And after that, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it.
Really?
If he doesn't want to get up, buddy, don't worry.
Really?
If he, if I couldn't,
How long can I take him for?
I'd take him about 15 minutes.
What?
Take him for 10, 15 minutes. He can go longer now. There's our greyhound, Billy.
Oh, I thought it went longer as in like an hour.
No. He doesn't have to go that long.
No.
Hey, buddy, you gonna go for walks? Yeah.
It's freaking sketchy as hell.
Alrighty. So since we're live on camera,
Sketchy as hell.
you can go take him out. We'll talk later, okay?
No, it's sketchy as hell.
Okay, gotcha. All right,
No,
Aiden.
don't.
Aiden, we'll see you soon. Have fun with the
I
dog.
tell you something right now.
Well, I'm in the middle of a live stream, so that I'm doing. But we can talk when you get back, okay?
It's not behavior wise.
No, I'm sure it's not, but we'll talk after because I'm talking to people right now, buddy. And there goes my older son who's 22 and a half.
Yeah, Mom, why are you putting me on?
You're walking
Why-
right through, bud.
Why are you telling me about people that I
Aiden,
don't know?
because you interrupted my live stream. I even had to sign up.
Yeah, because I'm walking, Billy.
All right. Well, that's what happens. Bye. Sorry about that, guys. My older son, lovely, totally blessed to have him. He does have autism, although it's higher functioning. And so he's very set on his routine. So even though I have a sign up saying video in session, don't interrupt, sometimes it happens. So getting back to my topic at hand. So what I came to realize was that, for one thing, I didn't drink coffee that day because it tasted gross to me. And the hot water was delicious because the coffee was gross to me that day. And even yesterday, and even first thing this morning. And I know it's not good for IBS. And I know if I'm not careful, it is going to flare up my arthritis and my joint pain. But I also know, or I should have known, that it's not good for me to try to cut something out cold turkey because the withdrawals are too hard. Again, even with the exception of trying to start paleo, we had to give up sugar and dairy and gluten and what was the other one? Soy. Well, a couple of them were no issue because I didn't consume them anyways. And the other two, there were withdrawal symptoms and I felt like crap for 2 weeks. And then I felt better once I got over that. And I forgot that would be the case with coffee, that I need to ease my way out of it. Eventually, do I want to be able to say, yeah, I have all this energy, I don't need coffee? Sure, of course I do. But I also think if you enjoy your cup of coffee, that doesn't mean that you are not low carb. That doesn't mean you're not keto or carnivore. It doesn't. Or even if it did, who am I to say, right? I'm not going to take away your membership card. It's nothing to do with that. So the people who've had the ability to cut out coffee completely, both regular and decaf, seriously, kudos, and my hands up to you, because that is really hard to do. That's not easy. And I know there's all kinds of advice about how to ease into cutting out coffee. So why did I feel like I had to? Well, I could have just not had the coffee, enjoyed the water, and not said anything. I felt like, oh yeah, I've got this. But of course, what I forgot to take into account was everything when you first do it feels awesome, right? Think about it. People who go vegan, people who go vegetarian or a paleo approach, all of these, even, a lower carb standard Western diet, in the beginning, they feel great because compared to what they were eating before, of course, that's going to feel better. However, over time, that can change. right? So the first afternoon, so technically, so Sunday afternoon, I felt pretty good. Um, I had that coffee. I felt pretty great. You know, I'd already been up for a while. I had all kinds of good positive energy. It was a really encouraging and inspiring church service and got to see some good friends and all that kind of thing. Helped. It all helped with the fact that, yeah, I feel pretty good energy. And, oh, I can totally just quit coffee. I'm good from now on. But the reality is, I spoke out too quickly. Now, I think I even said in that live stream that this is amazing. I've totally quit, I think, for now. Now, I thought maybe I had it licked and I would never be tempted again. And then, I felt bad and then I felt guilty because yesterday was a complete white knuckle. And I came to realize that my reason for quitting maybe isn't the best reason. And trying to do it cold turkey when I've never been able to anything cold turkey in my life, not a good idea. Not a good way to go forward. And does that sound like I'm making excuses? Yeah, probably. I'm sure it does. I'm not trying to. I know that ultimately, if I want to probably heal that last little bit of my IBS, that last little bit of my inflammation, I will, I'm sure, have to get rid of caffeine. I don't, that including tea and coffee. But right at the moment, I enjoy it. And so that's my update. I was pretty awake. I was up this morning I was up at 6 to feed the dogs, and I stayed awake till about 8, and then I passed out and took a half-hour nap on the sofa. So I'm trying to let my body, I guess, what am I trying to say here? So what I've been trying to do, because I am up early, that's just my new internal clock, and getting the dogs let out. And, hi, Birdie, come here. Letting the dogs out, making sure they get fed. But the thing I'm trying to do more of, hey, Birdie boy, is I'm trying to be aware. And so when I get up in the morning, if I'm tired, instead of going for a cup of coffee, I'll sit on the sofa. And if I end up falling asleep, then I sleep. And if I don't fall asleep and I stay awake, then that's me for the day. So instead, I'm trying not to artificially force myself to be awake when my body is calling out for rest. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing, is that instead of feeding myself with coffee or any kind of caffeine, it's just, okay, well, if I'm tired, then I'm going to rest, and allowing myself to do that. And making sure that coffee is a treat that happens on occasion, and not because I feel like I have to have it in order to get through the next couple of hours. And that's been really helpful. So I will continue for now to drink coffee, but I know that ultimately at some point coming off of it is going to be even better for me. And I had to share that. I wanted to be open and upfront, and not have people think, oh my gosh, you quit coffee cold turkey and you feel great and you're doing well. And no, that's not true at all. Okay. I realized today around lunchtime that, hello, Birdie, there was no way, there's absolutely no way that I was going to be able to go any further without having at least one coffee. Because again, like I said, my headache and my nauseous feeling of not having it, as well as craving a hot cup of coffee. And so I think that's okay. And maybe I needed to go for more than that. Hang on. I gotta let the dog out. Out you go. Go on. He's he's missing my husband who's working in the other room. So that's where he's going to go. But from now on, my plan going forward, again, is to treat coffee as a treat. Certainly the cappuccinos and whatnot. And my hope is that as I continue to learn more about of course, myself, but also to not feel guilty when I feel the need to rest, even if it's during the day, I hope that's going to make a huge difference. Like I know that yesterday when or last night when I sat down, I ended up falling asleep on the sofa for about 45 minutes. And when I woke up, I put the dogs out, turned on the dishwasher, went to bed. Right? But I want to be able to be at a place where I don't feel like I have to white knuckle it through the day. In my head thinking, oh, I miss coffee, I miss coffee, I miss coffee, I miss coffee. So for me, I'm going to try to see if I can manage it. If it quickly becomes something where I end up having to have 4 coffees in a day on a regular basis again, then obviously in that case, moderating isn't going to work. For me, I've already had to learn how to abstain from all the other crap. I think I'm going to see if I can learn to moderate with coffee. It's not as though, like, you know what I mean? If you have too much coffee, it's not like you're at risk of, getting in your car and crashing into somebody like you would if you had too much to drink. It's not like you're trying to operate and carry on working while you're a meth head or a cocaine head, right? It's not the same. It is an addiction, but it's not the same. So I'm hoping that that's what's going to be what happens. And, Christine, I'm with you. A lot of us drink a lot of coffee, and I am trying to get more water into my body for hydration. And so that was something else I really saw I needed to do more of from the last 2.5, 3 days was how much water I was craving, because clearly I wasn't giving myself enough of it. So I've been upping my water intake, hot and cold. And I think if I'm doing that, then 1 coffee every now and then, that's what I'm aiming for. And hopefully then gradually coming off of it, then when that time comes, I will have rebalanced my fluids a bit, because I do easily get dehydrated, not because I'm out exercising in the heat or anything, because I can't, just again, because of my back injury and my other chronic pain and so on. It's because I was having too much coffee and not enough water. And though decaffeinated coffee can be hydrating because it's the caffeine that dehydrates you, the only problem I have with that is when I drink decaf, it's usually horrible tasting. Instant or otherwise, it's usually pretty gross because it's bitter, because most times the process to dehydrate, to decaffeinate, requires a whole buttload of chemicals. Even if it's a Swiss water method of decaffeinating coffee, there are still a few chemicals that are used. And, those chemicals are not good. And that's what will often leave that bitter taste behind. And again, like I'm the first one to say, well, what the heck is the point of decaf? Like, why bother with it at all? Why not just not drink coffee? So it has its place, and I think I'll be able to really gradually work my way into cutting it out. So keep me in your thoughts, if you could, guys. Keep me in your prayers, please. My goal, ultimately, is if I get rid of coffee completely, it's because I don't crave it, I don't want it, and I feel energized without it. And in the meantime, my hope is that any coffee that I do have will be like a treat and that I can keep it to just a little bit. That's my hope, just a minimal amount. Because I do want to heal my gut fully. I do want to reverse my IBS. Bart Kay talks about how, of course, he used to drink a fair bit of coffee. And at one point he had fibromyalgia and he couldn't even get out of bed some days. And so I hear that story and that gives me hope that, wow, okay, I've had lots of healing by eating meat and egg yolks and praying and walking with God. And so healing spiritually as well as physically, which the two things go together, absolutely. But that probably what's going to give me that final bit of healing, I would imagine will happen when that last bit of coffee's gone. I'm hoping, I was able to, when I was at church, I was actually able to stand up a bit and walk around just a little. And normally in past services, I would have sat in my wheelchair for the whole time, or maybe got up if I had to go in to use the toilets. And to be able to stand up with my crutch and just say hi to people and, give them proper hugs and not have to be sat down. That's amazing. That is miraculous. Absolutely. That is God healing me through the meat of his animals and helping me spiritually through prayer. Or again, in some cases, perhaps for yourself. Now, I believe that's God working anyways. But if you believe it's a different higher power, hey, whatever helps. Honestly, whatever helps you. But I know for me, that's been God working. And when I think about all the other people out in this space who are also Christian, Kelly Hogan and Amanda Radke, and you've got Alyssa Grubner and Emily Penton, and of course there's Rebecca Heichman and Sarah Kleiner, and all these amazing people of faith and wellness and good health because they realize those things go together. So that's amazing. So I've had incredible healing, but I would not say that I'm fully healed. Maybe I won't be. I don't know. But I suspect when I get that last tiny bit out, maybe that's when that final bit will happen. Maybe it won't. It's not going to hurt to get rid of it. So my goal is to hopefully by the end of this year be off coffee completely. But for now, I'm going to enjoy a cup of coffee now and again, without guilt, but also with mindfulness and in very, 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 very great moderation. That is my hope and plan. If that changes, if I feel like I can't moderate, I will let you guys know. See what happens maybe in a week. See if I'm able to keep on plan. And then go from there, because although it's not required, it is one of those small little enjoyments of life. And I think, honestly, compared to all the caramel slices and brownies and cookies and pastries of all kinds and sorts that I used to eat, I think I'm doing all right. I'm doing pretty well considering. So anyhow, that was me, guys. I feel like I can actually go and moderate my coffee intake. So while I didn't quit completely, I still feel as though I had a break from the grip of that addiction. And for me, it's been there ever, like I said, since I was a teen. I was drinking either copious amounts of Diet Cola and or coffee that could suppress my appetite and restrict. Now, I like to enjoy it after I've eaten. And maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's why it's different this time. But here's to my insane dogs coming back from their walks. And thank you guys so much for watching and supporting and just being there. So I appreciate everything. Everything is an experience. Everything happens for a reason. So just because I couldn't quit cold turkey now doesn't mean I don't feel God answer my prayers, because I still felt as though I got a break from being held on to by caffeine, that it doesn't control me at the moment. Now, I say that I may very well be battling through that tomorrow, because that's what happens, right? We say, I'm recovered, I'm okay now, I'm better, and then we get tempted once again. But I know that God is still working, and how great it feels that I could take or leave what's left in that cup. I'm like, okay, if I have it, cool. If I don't, I'm good. Honestly and truly, that is how I feel. So, just like when I was drinking that hot water Sunday afternoon, I felt amazing. And it did feel great, because by that point, I was feeling nauseous from too much coffee. I was feeling gross and sick. I mean, like ick from too much coffee. And so it was true when I said it, and it's still true. And yeah, I felt like I had to share that with you guys. I'm not going to hide the fact that I'm having a coffee at all, or that I plan to enjoy one whenever the mood might strike, within reason. But my ultimate goal is to be able to not have to have it at all for any reason and feel nothing about it. Just like I feel right now about desserts. I have no desire for them whatsoever. I'm not tempted by them. Don't want them. Keto friendly or otherwise. Don't want them. Finally, that took a while to get there. And I guess the thing I've realized most is that, you know what? It took me ages to reach a point where I could say that. It's not going to be an instant change overnight. And that's what I was worried about. I thought, maybe I'm saying this too quickly. Maybe I'm saying I'm going to quit too soon. Part of me felt like, well, I should anyways. I mean, I know it's not good for me overall, but at this point, it could be worse. It could be something else. It could be much, much worse, right? I could be including rice or bread or copious amounts of honey, or, back on loads of fruit every day. And without being able to exercise, it would be a disaster for my health, for my triglycerides and my liver. So I'm good with where I'm at. But I believe in being honest and open. And when things have changed for me and I feel different about something, sharing that. I don't regret what I said on Sunday, because it was true at the time. And I still, I still believe that I do have to make sure I keep lots of fluids in me by drinking a lot of water, whether that is a bulletproof water, which is, like I said, butter and the hot water stirred together with a pinch of salt first thing in the morning. Delicious. And it did actually help with my headaches a bit because of the fat in it. That was the other thing, is that one of the things I really needed to do was make sure I was getting enough fat. And not just from butter, but making sure that when I fry up my bacon, when the fat gets a little crispy, before it burns off, obviously, before it gets fully rendered, I take it off the frying pan so I can eat some crispy. It's so good. Oh my goodness, it tastes amazing. So it's like eating crispy fat. Well, I mean, take it, not like it is. That is what it is, and it's delicious. And with my ground beef, now I'm mixing 23% with 20% to up the fat a bit, because I was finding I wasn't feeling quite full enough on just the 20% alone, and that I needed to up the fat a bit. So I'm mixing them together. It's kind of like when we first got our Greyhound Billy. He's a rescue. He's been, well, not a rescue, sorry. He's been rehomed because he's no longer racing. and he was on very carb heavy diet because, of course, he was racing, right? And that's what his trainer was feeding him. So he would get oatmeal for breakfast with eggs and a bit of fish in it, or some raw mince thrown in. I mean, he spoiled his dog and all of his other dogs that race. Wonderful, wonderful guy, really, really sweet guy. But clearly, he didn't need all of that coming to us because he's retired. He doesn't race anymore. But I couldn't just like right then stop feeding him what he was used to eating. So for the first week we had him, he'd be up at 4:30. I know. And he was getting kibble with some oatmeal and raw egg mixed in, or a little bit of tuna mixed in for about first 5 or 6 days. And then he would have a second meal kind of around 1, easing up towards 2, maybe 3. And little by little, I was cutting back on the portions. I was cutting out the egg yolk and I was cutting out the fish. And we were transitioning him from all of that and a Greyhound kibble to a really, really good kibble that our spaniel eats. And now he eats a whole lot less. He is not gassy because he doesn't have all those carbs in him. And yeah, but it took time. And I keep forgetting that, well, if we have to do that with animals, why are we any different? Why am I any different? I'm not. And again, is it all just an excuse to say I want my coffee? A little, a little. I can't lie. It's true. I enjoy my coffee. But even after 2.5 days with no coffee, no caffeine at all, you know what? I do feel like I've broken the bond of addiction in that sense. Like I have to have it. I feel like I could get through life easily um, with maybe one coffee and work my way up eventually to none. And I had to stop putting on myself a specific time restriction. I'll be ready to let it go when I'm ready. And if I actually listen to my body, then that's when I'll know, okay, cool. I feel great. Like I'm going to make a point now of when I get up, having my breakfast, hot water, which is what I did for the last couple of days, and no coffee. And honestly, it's great because I didn't feel like I even wanted coffee until almost 2 o'clock today. Whereas normally I would have had 3, maybe 4 by that point. Um, and so I'm able to push out that window. So I don't know, it's kind of weird. As I had to learn how to push out those times of when I was really hungry when I first started keto and then carnivore. And it wasn't for me, it wasn't about, oh yeah, by the way, I ate at 8 o'clock, so it's been 4 or 5 hours. I can eat now. I should eat now. It was no, listen to my body. Really, am I really hungry? I could eat, but I could not eat. And so as I've had to learn that skill, I'm thinking, well, I have to do the same with caffeine, with coffee. And at least I've learned that, you know what, if all it is that I want something hot to drink because I feel really cold, because like right now it's 1 degree Celsius, which is cold for these parts, then hot water with a tiny pinch of salt. Honestly, just tiny little pinch of salt and amazing. Perfect. All I needed. And then it was only because today I finally had a craving for the coffee. Not because I wanted the caffeine, but for the taste and the enjoyment and all that kind of stuff. So I hope that makes sense. So I am trying to cut down so I can eventually cut out coffee. That is my hope. That is my plan. And I don't want to put any pressure on myself because then what happens is I get filled with anxiety. And what do I like to drink when I'm anxious? Coffee. But what makes me feel nauseous to drink when I'm anxious? Coffee. So it will happen when it happens, right? And anybody else who's, drinking lots of coffee, but maybe you don't feel great about it or you don't know what to do, my sympathies. All I can say is for me, I was forced to not drink coffee for 2.5 days because the thought of it made me want to throw up. I call that God intervening and forcing me to take a break from it so I could step back and go, okay, here we are. Do I really want to quit completely right now? Why or why not? And is it for the right reasons? Is it because it's what I want? Or is it because everyone else on YouTube is kind of saying, oh, you should quit coffee, quit coffee, quit coffee? Are they wrong? No. Am I wrong? No. We're both right. We're both wrong. So I'm sorry if you're hoping for more suggestions or helpful tips than that. I don't have any other than, as I've learned the hard way, ease into it. Bart Kay and even Pim talk about how with some things you have to do it slowly because anything done too suddenly and too drastically is a shock to the body, and that's where you get withdrawals, and that's where you get the headaches and the nauseousness and all that other stuff. What people call keto flu or the carnivore withdrawals, or even going from a standard Western diet to paleo or low carb or ancestral or whatever you want to call it these days. If you don't do it gradually, it'll shock the body and you're not going to feel good. And there are some things that obviously need to be cut out maybe quicker than others, like the processed crap. I gave that up within a couple of days. However, the non-processed forms of said crap, like whole wheat bread and fruit, that took me about a week to be able to finally cut it all out fully because it was a lot. And I still had withdrawal symptoms. I mean, that part of that is just how addictive sugar is. But so that's what I had to do. And now I don't crave that stuff typically. Every once in a while, if I've not eaten enough protein and fat in the day, and we happen to have bread in the house for other people, not just me, I get tempted to want to eat just a small taste of bread. Now, we don't keep bread in the house anymore. We don't keep deli meats because I usually will buy something that can be easily microwaved for my son. That way, if I'm out, he can still feed himself. As I said, he has autism. He's high functioning, and he probably could eventually learn how to not only work the oven or the stovetop, but the challenges he often, when I've helped him in the kitchen, I've had to remind him multiple times to turn the elements off or turn the oven off because he has forgotten. When my husband and I were away in 2021, 2019, we went on a 10-day Spanish cruise in the south of Spain. And on one of those days, our older son had something, I don't know, Cornish pasty or sausage roll or something that was okay to go in the microwave or the oven. And for some reason, he decided to try to cook it in the oven. He forgot about it. And when his brother got home, about half an hour later, there was smoke billowing out of the house. Luckily, nothing caught fire and burned down, but yeah. So that would be why we hesitate to give him anything that requires him actually cooking it. Almost that for that reason simply. Now, Yeah, so that's where he's at. Hopefully, as he gets to learn how to work in the kitchen on his own independently, then he will want he enjoys things like bacon and eggs, but he is not at a place where he feels safe cooking them himself. And if I leave it to him, I don't feel great. He'll remember to shut the elements off. So unless I'm home and I'm cooking for everybody else, being myself and my husband, he will get up and eat whatever he eats for breakfast and go from there. So, but again, he's 22. He gets out and walks every day for at least a good couple of hours between the two dogs and him going into town or the library. So I'm not super worried right now. However, um, I'm hoping that he will want to learn how to cook safely so that he can make himself a much better breakfast than he gets now. But that's just me. I could cook for him if I wait around until he gets up around 10:30. We'll see. That might be the solution. But that being said, um, yeah. So I've had to learn that I cannot quit this cold turkey. It left me feeling absolutely horrible and gross and awful. But I have been able to, because of that 2.5 days break, it's been good because I don't feel that addictive need to have it constantly. Could I easily become addicted? Yes. Am I going to have to be super careful? Yes. But I'll keep you guys up to date. Let you know how it goes. And if you guys enjoy your coffee, keep enjoying it. If it doesn't seem to be causing any problems and it's something that you enjoy and it's one of those few little pleasures in life, I say go ahead. Go right ahead. I mean, if you're drinking more than 10 cups a day, you probably want to look at cutting down. I wouldn't say quit, but maybe cut down in order to eventually come off of it, maybe. Or at least, make it an occasional treat. It's for me, it's sort of like, well, I don't eat dessert, so I'll enjoy a coffee. That's how I'm going to try to look at it from now. So, yeah. So there we go. So I did give it up for 2.5 days. I know, big whoop, 2.5 days. But it was enough for me to realize I've got to cut back slowly, and I've got to come off of it very slowly, right? So it is a drug. Caffeine in high amounts can be used as a drug. I mean, they give it pill form for pilots and long haul truckers. They'll take caffeine pills if they have long drives or long flights ahead of them, and they don't want to have to worry about getting up and going to the toilet. They'll take those pills to stay awake. So clearly, it has an effect on the body. Now, I'm not drinking enough coffee for that to be the case, but if I would need to come off of any of my prescription medications slowly, then it would be the same with something like coffee. Anyways, guys, that sorry, I didn't realize how long this we'd been going, but that was it for me for today. Like I said, I wanted to be open and honest and absolutely be upfront and say, look, I did quit fully. Like I did give it up for 2.5 days, but I can't do it. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to do it. Not at this point. Is it? Yeah. Is it going to be good ultimately? Yes. Do I feel like I've broken from it being addictive? Yes, if I'm careful. So that's it. I don't think I can go any longer on this topic. So, anyways, guys, I'm really glad that you were here. Thank you for your comments. Thanks for joining in. Thank you for liking and supporting. I don't know if any of this is of help to anyone? I hope it is. I hope it's helpful. And if not, I hope it's at least entertaining. That's my other goal, is to at least be entertaining in some way. So thank you guys for another amazing, amazing, amazing time. I love doing these live streams. I really hadn't done them at all before, and because it felt weird. It was like, who's even listening? Why does it matter? Well, you guys are. And for that, I say thank you. Don't forget to check out my actual recorded videos, pre-recorded videos, I should say. And I'm hoping to be back again tomorrow with some more content, hopefully on a different topic, not just about coffee and overcoming the addictiveness of it, being able to hopefully moderate it. That's my hope. Ultimately, if I can get rid of it fully, yeah, perfect. But that'll be because it's what I want and it feels right for me. And I don't want to feel like I have to because other people in this space are cutting out coffee. Hey, good for them, but if you can't or you haven't, that's okay. That is okay. We are still part of the club. We are still in the group. God still loves us. Yeah. So that's all I gotta say. Anyways, sorry about that, guys. I rambled on longer than I normally would. So my goal is to keep coffee to one a day and work my way, hopefully, to making it just maybe once or twice a week. Special treat, 'cause I don't want to feel like it has that grip on me. It's one a day. I made it. There's my one a day. I don't want that to happen either. I don't want it to become an idol for me, is what I'm saying. So thank you for your time. Thank you so much for joining in. And I will see you guys in the next video, whether it be live or pre-recorded. We'll see what happens, see what the day brings tomorrow. But I wish all the best to everybody. And if it's cold where you are, I hope you're warm. If it's hot where you are, I hope you are able to get cooled off and that you guys have great days, whatever you're doing, wherever you are. That's it for now. Thanks, guys. Bye.